Welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Future of Healthcare, How a Hybrid Cloud Strategy Can Preserve Cash and Protect Hospitals. I am Brian Zimmerman with Becker's Hospital Review. We'll begin today's webinar with a presentation, and we'll have time at the end of the hour for a question and answer session. You can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them into the Q&A box you see on your screen. We are looking forward to hearing your questions. We will also have an audience polling question during today's webinar. When we reach our poll slide, the poll question will pop up automatically on your screen. Our speaker will give a few seconds for you to select an answer from the options on your screen and click Submit. Thank you in advance for your participation. Today's session is being recorded and will be available after the event. You can use the same link you used to log into today's webinar to access the recording. And at this time, it is now my pleasure to start today's webinar by introducing our presenter. Stephen Shim, an HPE Executive Healthcare Strategist on the GREENLAKE Consumption Services team, is a long-term health information technology professional and innovator who has served in numerous executive and leadership roles for academically affiliated health systems and integrated health networks. He's achieved HIMSS Analytics Stage 7 electronic health record adoption levels on a scale unique to the healthcare industry. His early adoption of hybrid cloud strategies paved the way for innovative offerings such as enterprise-level EHR as a service. He holds an MBA in Entrepreneurship and Innovation from Clemson University and a BS in Engineering from the University of Central Florida. He has chaired and served on executive advisory boards for UCF Department of Health Management and Informatics and is a former member of the HIMSS Executive Institute. And at this time, I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Stephen to begin today's presentation. Take it away, Stephen.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Good to be with you today, and thank you for taking time to attend the session. And I understand that many healthcare organizations are coping with the pandemic at this point on different levels, and we understand that your time is precious. So we certainly hope that you, your teams, and your families are doing well and staying safe during these trying times. Today, we'll be talking about hybrid cloud strategies in healthcare. Their economic value propositions, among other advantages, and how this will be a foundational pillar for moving forward with health IT. I look forward to sharing the HPE perspective on the ever-changing digital transformation landscape. So let's get started with what we see as universal issues and challenges for health IT that we are dealing with today. And so let me click here. Very good. So, we are dealing with an environment now that is changing, that's evolving, and it's really a problem that is causing health IT to be seen as expensive, slow, and wasteful in many cases. So let's talk about this. When we look at the environment, we have a challenge of really straddling the fence on both fronts here. So, we're trying to adopt new innovation going forward, but we're dealing with legacy environments. And so first is really the problem with over-provisioning. So today, this is something that I have certainly been guilty of in the past, right? Because with the funding models that have generally been available in healthcare, right, we purchase, assets and resources and technology when our funds become available. And so we go out and we get as large increments as we possibly can. And in fact, right, because the worst case scenario for us is that we are caught without resources to be able to address unplanned or poorly planned projects that are emergent or strategic that just haven't been planned well. So what this results in is a number of factors here related to over-provisioning. And really from studies and activities that we are involved with and analyzing our different customers' environments operating in this mode, we do see a 59% over-provisioning in compute and 48% over-provisioning in storage on average. So let's talk about how that impacts the organization. For one, if you're most organizations, you're buying this with capital funds. And this ties up capital that could be otherwise used to drive other business value within your organization. And, absolutely, there is more competition now for capital than there ever has been in the past. In addition, having additional resources will drive additional space, power, and cooling within your data center. These drive incremental costs associated with using that excess space and, consuming all those power resources. I'm not sure how many of you look at the power bill associated with your data center assets, but it is substantial. In addition to that, warranty burn, what we call warranty burn and support burn, where you have purchased assets, it's depreciating. You now also have warranty associated with that, but you're not using it productively. And so, this has an absolute cost associated with it that is just inefficient in having these over-provisioned and idle resources. Another factor here is time to value. And we talk about this really from the time that you get sort of the thumbs up to move forward with a project to the time that it is active in delivering value to your stakeholders or to your patient or your community. And the fact is that we have, these legacy systems and the way that we implement them today just absolutely take more time than what is today necessary or what is in demand from our health IT teams. So we see that on average, organizations take 133 days to procure and deliver on business requests. So that is, again, just a reality that exists today with legacy models and being able to support IT. And so, the fact is, this slow response time is really impacting our business, especially when you have things like the pandemic to deal with, right? Our ability to deliver solutions, deliver technology, deliver infrastructure quickly is really impacting our ability to adapt to these emerging demands, whether they're planned or unplanned, in a timely manner. And so this is absolutely an area that is really impacting our ability and really hurting really the reputation in what we can do and how we can accomplish our mission, as a service department and service team. Lastly, what we see is 80% of the resources of IT are wrapped up in operating, managing, and maintaining the IT environment. And in the end, right, this, we really need to think about a more intelligent way and a more innovative way to approach that. So one of the things that during my time with Clemson, I did a study on innovation, and there was a book written by Larry Keeley on 10 different types of innovation, and really to categorize that focuses on internal, how you maintain your operations and your and deliver your services. In the case of health IT, it's technology, of course. How your stakeholders can innovate, right? And then lastly, how you innovate to the patients and to the patient experience. And so what this really represents is an opportunity for health IT to innovate internally, right? Let's take a look at opportunities to rebalance the responsibilities and the level of effort on how we maintain operations and technology, and let's focus more on growing our service catalog, what we can do, what we can provide to our stakeholders so they can innovate. And then ultimately, we deliver past that, right, to innovate what we're doing for our patient community that we serve. And so, that is, but right now, we are stuck in this motion of where we have the majority of our resources wrapped up in maintaining existing infrastructure. And so that, again, is numbers that we see reported to us from IBC, as well as through our analysis in our workload shops, what we see in our customer base. So let's take a look at how healthcare and other industries are moving forward or trying to move forward to address this challenge. So here is the reality of what we're seeing today. What we have is ultimately a contingent of cloud-enabled solutions, software as a service predominantly, right, that have come on board. They're native cloud, born in the cloud type solutions, and we, as a health information technology team in industry, have embraced them. The fact is that we're all very happy with, by and large, with the performance and the capabilities of these software as a service applications. There are studies that say 97% customers surveyed are having a great experience. So we all understand that. We have all been able to pull the trigger and leverage that to the highest degree. But the fact of the matter is that we're still dealing with a number of applications now, roughly 2/3 of the applications that still reside on site. And there's a number of reasons that is the case. There are, in fact, some of these are driven by legacy architectures that are just unable to cleanly move to a cloud environment. And we have data gravity issues where it's driven that the processing against that information, that data, needs to be performed where the data is created and where it resides. Of course, for healthcare, there's security and compliance issues that we need to be very cognizant of and be diligent in managing. And especially in healthcare, we have interdependencies with systems that are critical. The whole electronic health record and HL7 interfaces that are necessary to deliver at the enterprise level. These are all factors that essentially drive why 2/3 of these applications still reside in our data centers or in our private colos. And so what this further complicates is the ability for us to support this in a hybrid environment. So what are we trying to do today? So we are, in fact, trying to straddle the fence and support both. And this produces just a huge level of complexity for us. Not only are we trying to fund both and justify that, forecast that, and track it, but we also have siloed operations. I can tell you from coming for years in the health IT space on the provider side, right? We have an immense amount of tools just on-prem alone, tracking what we're and having intelligence on our environment there, much less trying to now be able to manage what we're doing in the cloud or multiple clouds, right? So this is driving skill sets. This is driving tools now that we are trying to leverage and manage effectively. The talent to do this now are really have some overlap, but they are distinct. And now we're trying to capture both, be able to achieve our mission and our goals. And ultimately, the lack of visibility and governance in terms of security, HIPAA compliance, and even just utilization of how much we're using, how much are we paying, where does it reside? These are all challenges now that we are really dealing with. And this is the incremental step that, if you're like everybody else, that we've taken as a health IT industry. So the question now is, what if you could have the cloud experience for all your data and applications, what would that look like? So here is a really just the target of what we are, trying to move to. And, we really should take a moment to really level set as we envision this. First, I'll say, the concept of having the cloud everywhere. Okay, when we say everywhere, right, we're talking both in the public and in the private settings, as well as on-prem and off-prem. When you look, at how cloud is defined, I myself really refer to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, and how they define that, right? And this is what we're targeting, that definition to be available everywhere. And let me just touch on the four core tenets of what NIST would define as cloud. Being on demand, having pooled resources that you can tap into. It's measured so that you essentially know what you're using and you only pay for what you use. And then there's elasticity, the ability to flex not only up, but down, okay? And again, this is all settings, right? On-prem, off-prem, public, and private. So now if you take what we're envisioning in the future, what is the holy grail of what we're after? It's that cloud definition by NIST, having a way to have unified operations across your entire hybrid estate, right? Being able to have a normalized approach to manage all of it in an efficient and productive way. You want to be able to track and optimize usage and spend so you know where your workloads are and you can optimize where it runs and know how much you're spending and be able to forecast that as well. You don't want to be locked in, so you want to be able to choose different cloud solutions, different cloud providers. You want to be able to use different tools, address all different types of workloads, both new that are containerized and legacy that are running legacy environment, and be able to certainly pick partners who can help you achieve this mission. You do not want to be locked in. And lastly, right, you want to have a way to be able to govern and protect this environment in a holistic manner, and be able to have a productive way to comply with HIPAA, PCI, or SOC if that's what you're trying to support as well. So let's take a moment then, to look at how healthcare is moving forward with this. But let me just say, the good news is that this hybrid cloud experience is available today. And admittedly, it is evolving quickly, but this experience that you see is now being brought forward by the most innovative technology companies. And this is something that you can leverage. Again, this is something that we see actively as well as going to the future as the adoption rate just exploding. So now, again, let's take a look at how healthcare has been looking at the cloud in its adoption with this particular snapshot here. So this is a study that was produced by Nutanix in 2019. And what this shows is the adoption levels by industry, and it is just a snapshot. So we have, of course, healthcare, finance, we have technology, media, and telecom on the TMT. But here's the interesting part, if you can see this. Now, healthcare is really lagging behind. And so, why is that the case? So when I have these type of discussions, with in HEM seminars or our CHIME work groups, the input I get is everywhere from we have a more challenging and difficult environment to perhaps it is a missed opportunity on our part as an industry. But the fact is, this is where we sit, and what I would tell you is that Yeah, I'd love at this point, this is where I'd love to get feedback. This is not an interactive session, but again, I'll just remind you that you can submit questions along the way. I would encourage you to do that. We certainly will get to those at the end of the session. But the fact is that let's now consider how the pandemic has really made us pivot as an industry. It is driving cloud interest and adoption, with health IT. So here is a study that was produced, very recently. It was February of 2020 by IDC. And what this shows is key drivers for consumption-based solutions. The most prevalent of those being cloud enablement, of course. So you can see by the list what is being prioritized and what was driving the interest in cloud. And of course, what you see here is on the third bullet down, better cost per user metrics. And the fact is, right, total cost of ownership has always been, a core opportunity with cloud enablement. But now let's take a look at how recent events have impacted that. So what we see, of course, and what all of us are experiencing is that our revenues have been impacted as an industry. And even if you did not see a high influx of COVID patients, right, there was still the impact of to elective procedures and operations to your organization, which was really the life and revenue blood for most organizations financially. And so everybody went through this, and what you see as a response is many consultants and organizations such as Bain Company coming out and saying, this is really the opportunity to transform and look at a number of different areas to innovate, including cost structure. And so as a result, what we have is, when we look at this list, I wonder, right, and what we see is that in red, where does this now, is the key driver of shifts from capital CapEx budget to an OpEx budget reside on your priority list? Now, in the broader sense, when we talk about that, it really is an issue of cash preservation in matching your expenses to your revenue. If you can achieve this with both CapEx and OpEx. So I'm not sure that I like the way that this was asked and answered, in this survey. But the fact is that cash preservation is an area that's top of mind, with organizations, healthcare organizations that we're talking to, and that this now is a new priority that has been brought forward, that HIT is looking for ways to achieve and to satisfy. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just take a moment to engage in a survey. So Abby, I think you're at a point where you can administrate the survey.
You got it.
Very good. And so Abby, just let me know. We'll flash this out there for around 30, maybe 60 seconds, and have you give you a chance to answer it. So just the first gut reaction is fine. I think that's the way that these bear the best results. And then but we're going to keep moving forward with our presentation. So let's take a look, at the additional value proposition and how you can maximize the total cost of ownership, or I should say minimize the total cost of ownership by leveraging hybrid models. So this is such an interesting slide that I have here. This is a study that was produced in September by 451 Research. And what this is a map where you can maximize your total cost of ownership between public and private cloud. And a simple way to read this map is essentially that if you want to be where the colors are the deepest, where it's deep red or deep green, okay? And what we're doing here is we're mapping labor efficiency on the left to utilization on the right. So ultimately, there are use cases where you have a requirement that is very low labor efficiency, very low utilization, but you have to engage in that service. And those are absolutely where public cloud solutions shine and are the most appropriate option. And so an example of this might be SysDev type requirements, development type requirements. Now, as you move into other areas on this map where you're trying to achieve high labor efficiency, high utilization, and this is most prevalent for enterprise applications within the healthcare institution, right? You want to be where it's green. You know, in this case, the cloud solution that really prevails there in those type of requirements is private cloud. And so this is why you need both, though, right? You want to be able to take advantage of everything, you know, from if you have requirements to be in the bottom left to the top right, you can address those. In general, you know, you don't want to sit around in the middle, right? Because you're sort of in a neutral zone there. And on the right, what you see is sort of a map and a recommendation on how you should proceed. It says pretty much for your fixed requirements to the extent possible, right, that they are fixed, leverage private cloud. And then for your variable requirements, you know, from a simplistic manner, leverage where you have asymmetrical demand. So, now this ultimately what this is saying, though, this is why you need both and how you can take advantage of both, and really what is being required of us going forward as a health IT team to our stakeholders. So next, I'm going to talk just a little bit about a study that was performed. Let me just say this. You know, the general trend that you will find for these hybrid cloud deployments is that, you know, if you may begin doing something, prototyping or testing something in a public cloud environment, but as then it moves to scale, as you take it production, or if you know it passes certain gates, that you roll it out, right? Conceivably, it is going to move to your private cloud environment to maximize the TCO. We see studies in the past from IDC that really report on this type of migration that is going on, especially in machine learning and AI development. But ultimately, yes, you know, the prospect is that you eventually start, prototype, and then as you take the scale, you take it to private cloud, and that is the advantage of the private cloud. So now, let me talk about this Forrester report. So in this case, what I'm showing here is a report that was conducted by Forrester on a subset of really the HPE customer base that is leveraging consumption-based services. And in fact, there was a cross-section of organizations in there, but it absolutely included healthcare. And so what this report produced, in short, was the following. There was absolutely enhancements and value in terms of speed to delivery, time to value, as we were talking about before, simplifying IT to the extent that it was productive through your organization, as well as cloud economics. What we're talking about now, that is becoming one of the most important areas of the hybrid cloud value proposition. And then absolutely proper control. And this is where you're able to now satisfy your compliance, your security requirements for your organization by having the appropriate level of control in that environment. And what it also went on to do was quantify and equate it to a monetary figure, what value proposition there was in not having to overbuy on average or specific to your organization, improving the speed to deliver projects because you had resources available to deliver and support both planned and unplanned activities, efficiencies in reducing professional services. So we all engage a level of professional services to help us configure or deploy technology. And then lastly is IT operations. There's absolutely is on average, a quantifiable value to efficiencies to your operations by rebalancing how you're supporting technology. And so this is, these were the results. And, I'll say this, we do conduct this workload assessment. If you're interested in having this applied to your organization, you can reach out to me after this session. I'd be happy to talk with you about that. So let's talk about really the key questions that you should be asking your service provider as you move forward and considering options to address your specific challenges, your specific needs in hybrid cloud technologies. The first is what is your consumption model? And the fact is that there is what we see is there's a number of different organizations that require different metrics on a pay-per-use model. They're not all the same. And so you want to be able to understand that for your particular solution provider and make sure it aligns with your particular needs, how you consume those services, and that how it will reflect your consumption rates. In fact, though, this is one key value proposition because in general, you do not pay for these services at a time. You're able to preserve cash and optimize your workflow with your expenses to your revenue. In general, you'll be able to flex up as well as down based on what your needs are. In fact, I've had the opportunity to deploy and leverage that very capability in a former organization. And there's absolutely time frames that you would have a need to be able to, it's a complete value proposition and opportunity to flex up temporarily and flex back down, and then not have to pay for those resources continuously. Secondly, I would next is how do you offer the metering? And so again, it's you want to have complete situational awareness on how much you're using, where it's being used, and the cost of that, and have really a normalized view of that to the extent possible. But this is absolutely needed to not only assess how you are meeting your current needs, but then how can you plan going forward to cost out and forecast needs for additional resources. And essentially, you always want to make sure you have the right resources at the right time. And being able to have metrics in monitoring systems to be able to report that back to you is key. So the type of metering that you have available is an absolute must to have to be aware of that. The other part now, I would say, is how deep is your portfolio, and can you address the unique needs of your enterprise workloads, like in healthcare, electronic health record, medical imaging, document management. Certainly, there are other more generic, like ERP or HRM type systems. But in fact, that what we find in healthcare, and I think we're all acutely aware of this, is that we have some very specific requirements from our, particular systems and application providers, whether it be an electronic health record like Epic, or whether it be a PACS system or a medical imaging system. And so, the key is does your portfolio, does it encompass and have a track record of being able to productively address those type of technology requirements with the target workloads? And so that is absolutely one thing to think about, as well as the vertical integrated technology stack to be able to do this, right? So what I suggest here is that the more vertical integration that you have with a hybrid cloud solution provider, is the better off you're going to be. So, I equate this to what I often refer to as the Epic or Cerner strategy, right? So you have a single vendor that vertically integrates all, or the vast majority of the clinical, modules and functionality that you need to deliver in the organization, right? And so what that has done is delivered a highly effective, highly integrated solution. Well, this very same vertically integrated strategy should be considered as well, for your technology foundation and your technology service provider. And then, also along this line is how committed is your solution provider to embracing consumption services? And so, is everything that solution provider has in their portfolio available or to be delivered and consumed on a consumption-based service? Next, I can tell you is how long have you been doing this? And I can tell you that I've been with HPE now maybe about 10 months now, and as noted in my introduction, I really spent the majority of my career on the university health-based system and integrated health network side. But what I can tell you is that coming over to HPE, that cloud consumption-based services, they're complicated, right? And it takes a lot of effort to be able to deliver that and bridge, this gap and integrate both, on-prem, off-prem, public, and private. And so what I can tell you is that you want to look at the history, the commitment, and the level of effort that your solution provider is making in that area. Having reference architectures for the most sophisticated workloads within your private cloud or on-prem environment, again, for things like PACS and electronic health record, is also an area that you want to be looking at. Well, the ones who have done it in the past, or the ones that definitely could do it in the future now, are they embracing a consumption-based model to deliver other value? And of course, we want to make sure that your hybrid cloud technology vendor is committed and very familiar, in tune with compliance requirements. Again, HIPAA, PCI, as it were, for healthcare. These are areas that that we know is constantly under attack. We have to be nimble. We have to continuously evolve, and should have a technology vendor who is really that has dedicated resources with expert in that industry. And lastly, I'll just comment on the right services, that accompany all the technology. And so, when you look at options to simplify IT, with full support for either infrastructure as a service or platforms as a service offerings, and these things might include, monitoring services, proactive monitoring services, engineering support, administrative support, right? Being able to have those options available really match, to where you need help or where you want to leverage a technology partner or hybrid cloud technology service. This is these are the options you want to make sure are available so you can integrate well over time. The other thing I'll just mention here is that the teams that have been, especially healthcare, that have been aligned to a lot of these legacy models for so long, aligning the team to a consumption-based strategy with hybrid cloud does not come naturally. And so, it's good to have resources through your technology provider that help you really change the culture. And that is, that is going to be absolutely important for you to really move from where we are today to the hybrid cloud environment. And most will say that that's where we're going to be, and that's where we're heading. In fact, IDC forecasts that 60% of the enterprises will use consumption models going forward by, I think it was 2023, right? But you know what? I will say this. This was that study was done pre-pandemic, and what I could tell you just based on what we're seeing during these times is that this is really on steroids now. It's accelerating at an unbelievable pace, both in healthcare and outside of healthcare. And so I'll leave that there. So Abby, let me ask you: do we have some results that we could share with the audience?
We do. I will push it to us now.
So let's see. 60% yes, 2.2% no, and 37% uncertain. Gosh, I don't know that I would have exactly forecasted that or guessed that. That is very interesting results. Thank you for taking the time to participate in that. So what I'm just going to finish up here with is just a little bit about HPE and GreenLake and really what my service line is involved with. From we as a company are committed to evolving. We are now managing technology all the way from the edge to the data center to the cloud. We have made a commitment to make everything in our service line, all of our products and our technology available as a service by 2022. That is an unprecedented commitment to the healthcare industry as well as all industries. And we are embracing, the cloud, as defined by NIST, right, across the bottom. And in fact, This is the fastest growing business line for HPE in the last year, and now it's continuing to be this year. So, I'll stop there, and I see it's 12:45, and let me just take a moment to open this up for questions that might have come across, and I see some in the chat window.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. I can jump in here and help out with the Q&A. Really appreciate the excellent presentation. And as Stephen was mentioning, you can type your questions, any questions you have for Stephen, into the Q&A box you see on your dashboard, and we'll get through as many as we can here. And I do know that we will be making the recording available after the event today, but we do have a lot of requests, Stephen, about access to the slides. So just curious if you're comfortable with sharing the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly can share a version of these slides. Happy to do that. Excellent.
Thank you for clearing that up for folks. We had a bunch of questions about the slides. So with that, let's dive into some other questions here. So this attendee asks, many of our applications have specifications for the infrastructure that we follow. What is the use case for reducing consumption levels if we were able to do that?
Yeah. Great question. So let me give you an example. So my last organization, we leverage a consumption model, GreenLake, HPE GreenLake, as it were, to support Epic. So Epic is a perfect example of this. So Epic is very prescriptive in what you will deploy in terms of infrastructure, and they incentivize you to deploy that. And of course we did. But what we found, right, is that we could achieve our target objectives in terms of performance, latency, error rates, on normal operations with 80% of the hardware. So that wasn't necessarily the reason that we engaged in the GreenLake consumption services, but it certainly was an outcome. And the good news for us is that because we were only using 80%, we only had to pay for 80%. But I'll also add, the very reason why companies, enterprise-level Tier 1 application providers like Epic would promote having as much hardware as they do is because there's occasions when you will need that. So if you're doing acquisitions, turning up hospitals, you're doing major upgrades in software, or you're introducing very new workloads or new clinical modules, these are times when you want to throw more resources at your environment. So we had the opportunity to ramp up to 100% to get through those temporary needs and then settle back down. Absolute great use case. Now this is as a matter of fact, I would just also mention Epic is aware of GreenLake, and they endorse it. As a matter of fact, not to put words in their mouth, it just helps their customers have the resources that they need, that Epic knows that you'll need in the worst case scenario, but then not have to pay for it all the time. And so this is really a universal sort of approach to all enterprise level Tier 1 applications. So that's an example, of a use case.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Stephen. The next question I'll put to you. This attendee is wondering if you can expand more on vertical integration related to EHR.
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. So let me put it into perspective from the provider side who's consuming these type of services. So my last organization, right? We had an event that drove us to reconsider how we were supporting our technology. And then we came to terms that we needed to become more of a service provider, right? That we needed to, one, manage a lot more capabilities to our stakeholders and provide that. And we had to find a way to manage that in a different way than just having our own people do it. So we went out to rebalance this. But in addition to that, really, we looked at other service providers. They had leveraged, especially for tier one applications, converged infrastructure technology. And so we looked at the time and we said, well, who has the strongest value proposition with vertically integrated technology? And we, at that time, looked, so you should look at this and you should make your own decision. At the time, we selected HPE because the core components, for the tier one application were all provided under one house. They were organically developed and maintained and operated by one vendor. Again, I would call it the Epic or Cerner strategy, right? And so, if you have that best ensures, smooth, reliable, and predictable operations in availability. So that's what that's what I'm referring to with vertical integration and best-in-class type approaches to infrastructure, not a best-of-breed. To be frank, that introduces a best-of-breed. Having different components this day and age introduces risk and workload onto the infrastructure team, right, to integrate components, which, again, can become challenged. And it results in additional time being having and managing this effectively. Great question.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Stephen.
you for that.
Appreciate you offering up that added clarity there, and really appreciate all the great engagement we've got from attendees. We've had a ton of great questions come in. The next one we'll take is the attendee asks, how can we achieve a paperless EHR with improved usability and efficiency?
That's a great question. I love that. So here's what I would say. One of the things that that was just briefly mentioned at the top of this session was that I have experience with adoption levels for electronic health record. It's HEMS analytics, different stage levels. And so while phase, I have an appreciation for this at the highest levels. In the previous organization that I work with, we were able to achieve stage 7s on the HEMS analytics adoption model, but we also did it end-to-end in an instance that was second largest in the nation. Now, the reason I say that is because stage 7, for all intents and purposes, is paperless to the extent you could be paperless. But in addition to that, it is it's really the integration between IT. Stage 7 may seem like an IT recognition and accolade. It's not, right? It's a recognition of how you have integration between your clinicians, your medical staff, your operations, and IT. So if you spend and focus time on that, and not all your time on just 80% of your resources supporting and keeping operational your technology, right? This is really the first stepping stone to be able to innovate, especially to your stakeholders, ultimately to the patients you serve, right? To be able to achieve stage 7 and ultimately things like a paperless environment. But what you can't be doing is focusing heads down on trying to keep your infrastructure sound and not focusing on the caregivers within and the stakeholders within your organization.
Thank you, Stephen. And the next question I have for you here is attendee wonders, can this be implemented remotely in Mexico?
Yes. I myself focus on the North America or the U.S. But yes, in terms of the HPE GreenLake program, HPE is a worldwide company, and I assume there's others that are doing this as well, but absolutely available worldwide. We have references, for organizations in most every country. Again, oddly enough, the uptick in healthcare has been slower than other industries, but in many ways we see this pivot with the pandemic changing that. But yes, absolutely an international program.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying. And the next question here is, I believe the attendee is wondering could they say HPE GreenLake is similar to Microsoft Azure Cloud Services? So is that a fair comparison?
Yes. So Azure Cloud Services, absolutely an offering out there for infrastructure as a service, and in some cases platform as a service. Yes, this is absolutely comparable to that. It is, both are considered cloud enabled by NIST, right? National Institute of Standards and Technology. The difference here, right, is that HPE and organizations like HPE essentially, right, are trying to enable that cloud experience, that remote cloud, public cloud experience in your data center, right? We're trying to introduce that throughout the environments in which Health IT is deploying solutions, and then normalizing that to the cloud experience. Again, the experience that NIST defines. And so that is where we generally tend to separate, right? What happens is that the cloud providers, they do it very well in the cloud, no doubt. But then the challenge becomes is, can they support that now where the other 2/3 of your applications in your demand is residing? So the answer to that is yes, it's comparable. The difference is we bring the cloud to you, right, instead of you having to go to the cloud.
Thank you, Stephen. Some really wonderful audience engagement again. We really appreciate it. And Stephen, before we close things out here, I just want to open up the floor to you to share any final thoughts with attendees.
Yeah, so, I'll just say this, thank you for your time today. In closing, one thing that is often missed, I'll just say, I want to thank especially the health IT professionals that are online today, especially for your dedication to commitment to the patient care mission during this pandemic. I talk to so many professional and colleagues that think that they're honestly unappreciated, and probably the ones that know how much effort and how much dedication is being put into, through health IT is, us, our peers, our family members, right? And so, so I just want to take a moment, to thank you, for your efforts, because in the end, we're, your community, we're part of the community that consumes those services, and it's much appreciated. Secondly, I'll just say this, there was a recent article I read from the Harvard Business, and it was published recently in March. And it was talking about innovation in a time of crisis. And so I would say Health IT is sort of in tune with this, probably not at the scale that we're currently experiencing. But let me just say, this is an opportunity for organizations, to unite around a purpose and a mission, and really look at these problems that have been in place for a long time, or these legacy models that we have, through another lens, right? And think about how things could actually be improved, or how they could be. And this is part of what this presentation was talking about. And in fact, the silver lining is that most organizations are what I would classify as unfroze at this point. They're willing to make a change that absolutely makes business sense. And so this is hybrid cloud adoption and consumption-based services is absolutely that, in my opinion. And then ultimately creating, and what they say is creating a bias towards action. And I think we have that. So I would just say that there's an absolute opportunity. Consider your options, become educated and informed of what options are available, especially ones that we have shied away from in the past as an industry. With that really concludes my presentation. Thank you, Brian, and thank you everyone for being online for this webinar today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Some great thoughts to end on there. And I just also want to thank Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Intel for sponsoring today's webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. We look forward to having you join us for future webinars.